of events, I want to give you a mini sermon before the Old Testament lesson. Don't worry, the later sermon will be shorter. I have needed to talk to you about these Old Testament lessons because they've been very weird and they're getting weirder. Last week was about the plumb line. This week is about baskets of summer fruit. And next week, God's going to tell the prophet to go and choose as his wife a prostitute and have children of prostitution. What is going on? This season, throughout the summer, there's 25 to 30 Sundays. And we're reading the words of the Old Testament prophets. And here's what you need to know about these words. This is not widely recognized, but it's deeply embedded in the Old Testament that there was a civil war in Israel. Now, maybe you knew that or maybe you didn't, but it is central to understanding the history of the Old Testament. Yes, they were in Egypt. They came out under Moses. Yes, King David was awesome and King Solomon was wise. But the whole second half of the Old Testament occurs in the context of a civil war in Israel. What happens is Solomon, who's the third king, Saul, David, Solomon. Solomon is super wise. He builds amazing things. Solomon's two sons divide the nation. And it never comes back together. We'll skip to the end. It never gets healed. Not like the American Civil War, where one side wins, they reunify, they break. One of Solomon's sons takes 10 of the tribes, and they become the northern kingdom. Now there was 12 tribes, so because it was 10 tribes, they still call themselves Israel. So the northern kingdom is now called Israel. And the southern kingdom, which has Jerusalem in it, is called Judah. And so Judah and Israel are at war for a long time. And after 200 years, the northern kingdom is totally destroyed. They are destroyed by the Assyrians, which are their neighbors, a powerful neighbor. The Assyrians come in, they destroy the northern kingdom, and they put into this process so that they'll never be able to reorganize again. They take a bunch of the elite who'd be likely to lead a rebellion, and they take them and scatter them to the farthest reaches of the Assyrian Empire. They take other people and bring them into the northern kingdom to settle, to water down the Jewishness of the northern kingdom. The children of those people, therefore, are not fully Jewish. They're partly Jewish, they're partly Assyrian. There's other gods, there's other traditions. And the northern kingdom basically never exists from that point on. The northern kingdom is destroyed after 200 years, and the southern kingdom lasts only a little longer, 350 years, until the southern kingdom is also destroyed by Babylon. And all of those people are taken away to Babylon. So you have this period of time, about 70 years, where the northern kingdom's destroyed, the southern kingdom's destroyed, the northern people are lost. These are the lost tribes of Israel because they never come back together. And the southern kingdom are in Babylon. And at the very end of the Old Testament, some of the people get to come back from Babylon to the ruins of Jerusalem and try to rebuild. So the prophets are speaking during the time of the Civil War. And some prophets speak to the northern kingdom, and some prophets speak to the southern kingdom. And what they're both telling, what they're saying prophetically is, we are off kilter, we will be destroyed. Which does happen, right? They are destroyed. So when you hear Elijah in the northern kingdom talking to King Ahab and to Jezebel and saying, you guys are totally off, God is going to bring judgment, it eventually comes. When you have Elisha, after Elijah, who's also working in the northern kingdom against these evil kings, it's because after Solomon and his sons, the northern kingdom has a long train, I think almost 20, of kings, and all of them are horrible. Because they don't have Jerusalem, because they don't have Judah, the first thing they do in the northern kingdom is the king comes out and creates 2 golden calves and says to the people, these are your gods. We're not going to sacrifice in Jerusalem because that's the bad place. We're going to create new altars. We're going to worship All of these other gods in the high places, we're going to create new temples and worship other people. And also in the northern kingdom, not only are the kings bad, but the whole nation is off balance. The prophets come to them. Amos last week comes to the northern kingdom and says, God has a plumb line. This is a string with a heavy weight that you use to build walls to make sure that they're straight. He says, God has a plumb line. And he's holding it up to you in the northern kingdom. And he's saying, you're building wrong, and it's all going to come crashing down. These are the words of the prophet. Not people you invite to your birthday party. Because they were no fun. Today, we're about to hear Amos again. Amos was from the southern kingdom. He was a happy shepherd, and he dressed sycamore trees. And God called him and said, go to the northern kingdom and tell them how off-kilter they are. How their hearts aren't on me. They're not taking care of the poor. They're not watching out for the needy. Their worship is empty. And this morning, Amos is going to say, he looks at a basket of summer fruit, and then God speaks to him and says, yes, summer fruit, right? Because it's been plucked from the tree. It's no longer connected to the tree. For the moment, it looks good, but you let it sit there for a couple days or a week, and it becomes absolutely rotten. There's no more life in it. Amos is going to say in the words of God, that's what I see of you, Israel. Right now, you look shiny, you look beautiful, you look healthy, you look like a basket of summer fruit, and yet just watch, just wait, because you've been disconnected from me, and you're going to rot in the basket, and you will all be destroyed. Next week, Hosea is going to say, God's going to say to him, go take a wife of prostitution and have children of prostitution so you can know what it feels like to be me, God says. Because I love my nation. I love Israel. I give everything to Israel. And what happens, remember the northern kingdom, is the one that God is saying I'm married to is going out after wealth. It's going out after other gods. It's going out after selfishness. Their heart is not on me. And Hosea goes and does what God says, and he experiences in his life what it's like to be married to somebody who's always going after other people. And Hosea's heart is broken because of this. But when he speaks out of that, he's talking about God's broken heart for the northern kingdom. After about 10 weeks of northern kingdom prophets, we're going to shift this summer, late summer, to southern kingdom prophets. Because the southern kingdom also has their problems. And we're going to listen to Isaiah, and we're going to listen to Jeremiah, who are saying very similar things to Judah. That's probably 2 or 3 minutes more than I meant to say. But it's really essential to understand the context of everything in the Old Testament after King David, which is at least half of the book. So let's invite up Dean. This is his first time reading this morning, and see what Amos might have to say to us. Thank you. Gospel of our Savior Jesus Christ according to Luke.
Glory be to you, Lord.
As Jesus and his disciples went on their way, Jesus entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to thee, O Christ.
As promised, we'll make this brief briefer by getting straight to the point. Mary and Martha's story bothers a lot of people. It bothers a lot of people who see themselves in Martha and feel like we help to make the world turn. Like it is busy women, busy men who are like creating society. People have to wash the clothes, they have to do the dishes, they have to cook the food. People have to mow the lawns and drive the buses and perform surgery. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done in the world. We cannot all sit at Jesus' feet and simply listen. That does not lead to a productive society. And these people, often many of us, perhaps all of us, feel like Martha is getting a raw deal. And that, sure, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all just sit down and just sit at Jesus' feet all day long, which is probably exactly what Martha was thinking. Oh, wouldn't it be great if we could all be married, but work needs to be done. It's true that work needs to be done. And in fact, throughout the gospel, there's frequent parables and teachings that reaffirm that doing the work is important. Last week was the Good Samaritan. If the Good Samaritan was sitting at home just reading the Bible, he never would have come to the man who was hurt. He never would have bandaged his wounds, put him on his donkey, brought him to the inn. These are all active things, and they're all about hospitality. So what's the problem? I want to suggest to you that there might be a non-obvious answer to what Martha's problem is. And that it might be that she's complaining, and that she's worried about everyone else but herself. And that this might be the actual problem. For example, you could imagine Mary sitting at Jesus' feet saying, Jesus, gee, what the heck? Can you talk to my sister? She's distracted. I'm trying to listen to you. She's running all over the house. She's vacuuming under my feet. She's making noise in the kitchen. Jesus, can you please tell her to stop making so much noise so that I can listen here a little bit better? You can imagine Mary saying that. She's not. Mary is not worried about the people that are like building a furniture 2 houses over, making a racket. Mary is not worried about Martha. Mary is not worried about children. Mary is focused completely on doing what she must do then for the Lord. And so her heart is singular. She's doing what she must do for God and not worrying about other people. Martha, on the other hand, is basically condemning Jesus. She's like, Jesus, don't you care? She's accusing Jesus of being inattentive. She's accusing Jesus of being not compassionate. Then she's like, woe is me, right? I have to do all these things, right? She's complaining about her own efforts. And then she says to Jesus, tell my sister to come and help me. She's telling Jesus what to do. This is not the way it's supposed to go. I think that when Jesus is talking to Martha, what he really wants to say is, Martha, repeat after me. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Do you know that phrase? I love this phrase. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I'm not in charge of that situation. I'm not in charge of that household. I'm not in charge of that business. It's none of my business. Literally, right? I'm going to focus on doing my walk the way that I have to do it. And see, when your heart is set on doing what you're doing for God because you're called to it, that is the singularity. We need workers, and there's nothing wrong with the labor. We need contemplation. There's nothing wrong with the stillness and reading. And in fact, the fact that they're sisters, like in a literary sense, the fact that they're related, suggests to us that if we're going to be like one in ourselves, one household, one whole, then we need both parts, right? Does that make sense to you that they're sisters, like sister concepts, right? They're sister ways of being, and that all of us should take time for both. What we should not be doing is pointing fingers and worrying about everybody else. That is when we get distracted. That's when we get off kilter. That's when we turn into judges and when we turn into complainers instead of being singular in our heart. This is my walk. This is my path. is the absolute best that I can. If you tend to be contemplative, find out what happens to do work for God. If you are one of the people who are always doing the things, maybe find out what it feels like to take some time for contemplation. But whatever path you're on in the moment, stick to that path. Stick to your own story. Leave God to judge. And find out the freedom that Christ is calling you to. It must be so wonderful to not have to worry about anybody else's circuses or anyone else's monkeys. Imagine letting it all go. Doesn't that sound nice? And then we can concentrate on ourselves and our relationship